Welcome back to the Schaal podcast. If you are in midlife or beyond and find yourself asking deeper questions about meaning, direction, and who you are becoming, this episode is for you. Today we're talking about something simple but powerful, the importance of input, what we take in through our thoughts, conversations, media, habits, and environment. Because what goes in does not just pass through us, it shapes us. Garbage in, garbage out is not just a saying. It is how the human mind and heart actually work. In this episode, we're going to look at why the quality of what you take in matters, especially at this stage of life when your heart is expanded through experience and caring for others and is now seeking to be filled with what is meaningful and life-giving. We'll also look at how choosing better input can gently guide you into meaning and purpose. If this conversation resonates, please like, subscribe, and share. It helps get the messages into more hands and more hearts. This is a Schaal podcast. I'm Schaal. Let's get started. Before we get into the science or the evidence-based exercises, we need a little context. The idea that what we take in shapes who we become is not new. Humans have always understood at a basic level long before neuroscience. People knew that what you listen to, what you dwell on, and what you surround yourself with leaves a mark. Proverbs, philosophy, faith traditions, and early psychology all pointed to the same truth. You become like what you repeatedly attend to. Parents understand this instinctively. They see it clearly in their children. They know that their peers influence behavior, attitudes, language, and values. That's why we say things like, you are the friends you keep, right? Long before neuroscience, people understood that who and what surrounds you shapes who you become. For most of human history, input was limited. Conversations were local. Stories were shared face to face. Information moved slowly. There were natural boundaries on what the mind and heart had to process. That is no longer the world we live in. Today, input is constant. News, opinions, images, noise, and emotional content are coming at us all day long. And much of it is designed to provoke, distract, or keep us unsettled. At midlife and beyond, this matters more than ever. You're not just forming skills or chasing outcomes anymore. You're shaping the inner environment you'll live with for decades. And an expanded heart does not need more noise. It needs nourishment. That is why input matters so much. Not because you need to control everything, but because awareness gives you choice. And choice is where change begins. I want to share a couple points here. I've mentioned this before, but it matters in this conversation. Over time, in my practice of gratitude, my baseline has changed. Now, when I say baseline, I mean my usual way of doing things, how I tend to think, feel, and respond most days. That change came through an authentic practice of gratitude. Not unbridled positivity, not pretending everything is fine, but a steady habit of noticing what is good and making choices towards that goodness. Because of that, a lot of negative input no longer lands the way it once did with me. Things like extreme violence, gossip, or harsh and careless words don't take root in many cases. They don't even get in. Not because of willpower, not because I'm avoiding the world, but because my inner environment has changed. That's one of the quiet effects of intentional input. Over time, it reshapes what sticks. It reshapes what has an impact on you. The second point is this. We have to ask a deeper question. How do I want to be? Who do I want to be? In my home, with the people I love, and in the world. When you begin to answer that, discernment becomes much easier. You can feel when something supports who you're becoming, and you can feel when it doesn't. This is often the moment when people say, "Oh, that makes sense. Now I understand why I feel the way I do, and I can see what I no longer want to take in." The rest is not complicated. It's discipline. And now we can talk about why this stuff works. Why does it work the way it does? The human brain is shaped by repeated input, not by what we hope will happen, not by what we promise ourselves, but by what we take in again and again. Intention and input are two different processes. You can sincerely intend to be calm, to be grateful, to be patient or hopeful, but the brain does not wire itself around intention. It wires itself around what the input is that is repeatedly coming into your body and brain. The brain learns through exposure and repetition. Whatever is repeated becomes familiar. Whatever is familiar becomes automatic, and whatever becomes automatic becomes your baseline. The brain also has a natural negativity bias. We've talked about this. It's more sensitive to threat, conflict, and loss than to safe calm. You know, this helped humans survive long, long ago. But in modern life, it means the brain can easily become overstimulated and unsettled. Repeated exposure to harsh language, fear-based messaging, conflict, or emotional intensity increases stress hormones and keeps the nervous system on alert. Over time, this affects mood, patience, sleep, and how safe the world feels. We've all experienced that. Researchers have watched this happen in studies. In one case, in one line of research, adults between the ages of 40 and 65 were followed over time. Participants didn't change their intentions, they only changed what they were exposed to. After a short period of increased negative input, researchers measured higher stress hormones and greater irritability. Months later, those same participants repeated poorer sleep, lower patience, and a stronger sense that the world felt unsafe. In contrast, other studies looked at adults who practiced a simple gratitude practice, just writing down something a few minutes a day. No therapy, no major lifestyle changes. They just wrote something they were grateful for that only took a couple minutes a day. Over time, brain activity shifted in areas related to emotional regulation. Participants reported feeling calmer and more grounded, and many of those changes held months later. What these studies show is simple. The brain responds to what is repeated. Repeated input does more than affect mood. It shapes identity. When the nervous system is repeatedly activated, the brain begins to expect threat. Worry feels normal, like you should be worrying, right? Being on guard feels necessary. Over time, you don't just feel anxious or fearful, you begin to live from that place. You become a fearful and anxious person. Now, this is not a character flaw, not at all. It's conditioning. And the same processes work in the opposite direction. When input supports safety, meaning, and goodness, the nervous system settles. The brain begins to expect stability. Calm becomes easier to access. Perspective widens. You begin to show up as a steadier, more grounded version of yourself. This is where gratitude as repeated input matters. It trains the brain to notice what is supportive and life-giving. Over time, it changes what stands and what sticks. And here's the hopeful part. The midlife and beyond brain is malleable. Here we go. It can still change. The idea that you can't teach an old dog new tricks is outdated. You can throw that story out the window. Neuroplasticity means the brain adapts. It's based on how it's used. New connections can form. Old patterns can weaken. What you repeat matters. This is powerful information. It means you're not stuck with the brain you had years ago. Your past doesn't lock in your future. And with this knowledge comes responsibility. If the brain changes based on what it takes in, then what you allow into your mind and body matters. So now let's move from this understanding into action. In the studies we just talked about, people weren't asked to overhaul their lives. They made small, consistent changes in what they took in. The first exercise comes straight from that research. Once a day, take a few minutes to write down 3 things you genuinely appreciate. Nothing fancy, just real things from your day. The second exercise is about reducing negative input on purpose. Choose one source of distressing input to limit for a set period of time. News, social media, violent content, or certain conversations. Keep it simple so you don't get overwhelmed. And remember, you're not avoiding reality, you're protecting your nervous system. And now we end with awareness. This is important. Before changing more, simply observe. For 1 or 2 weeks, or 1 or 2 days, keep a simple observation journal. Each day, note 2 things. What went into my mind today? What went into my body today? No judgment, no fixing, just noticing. At the end of the day, ask one gentle question. Did this input support who I want to become? Did it feel right? If you are able to be honest with yourself in this exercise, you will learn a ton of stuff about yourself. You will discover which way your mind and body want to take you and what you are willing to do to direct that energy as you see fit. I hope you see how powerful all of this is. Awareness comes first. Discernment follows naturally. You become more aware. And then discipline comes later. The practice is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to give you clarity. And clarity is powerful. It is a testimony to how much control you actually have in forming the trajectory of your life. It's big stuff. As we close today, I want to leave you with this. You're not behind. You're not late. You're right where you're supposed to be. At this stage of life, you don't need more pressure. You need clarity. Small changes in input shape how you feel, how you respond, and who you become. And the beautiful part is you get to choose. This is where you get to choose. At your own pace, thoughtfully, gently. If this episode was helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. I appreciate you spending this time with me, and I hope you leave feeling encouraged, grounded, and maybe even a little excited about what's possible. Until next time, this is Karen Schaal. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.